and how both patches and minor upgrades go through the kind of the same process.
Yep.
Are you seeing the same amount of pain with patch releases that you're seeing with minor upgrades, or are those a little bit more reliable?
No, patch releases are generally okay. Usually for us, we hit a lot of pain in the minor release, and then getting the patch releases out the door after that is relatively simple, because a lot of the time those patch releases are fixing problems we found in the minor. So for us, iterating over patches has never been an issue. It's always been the big changes.
Makes sense. What about config changes? Like if you're adding a virtual service, does that go through the pipeline as well?
It does, but it's tied to the application. So each of those 400 applications has got its own configuration. So if they all deploy off like a master Helm chart. So we have like an all-encompassing Helm chart that they feed their values into. It's that Helm chart that generates the Istio manifests. So for example, if I own application A and I want to increase its timeout, I put that in my repo. My repo deploys that through the environment. So we don't have separate infrastructure repos, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. The application's pipeline, app code, and all of the infrastructure concerns get deployed as a single pipeline, including the template Istio resources. From a platform perspective, if I want to do something across all applications, so let's say I want to enable HTTP2 on every single app, I don't do that at a system level. I put it in that chart. That chart gets tested, and then the next time the application is released, it will pull in the latest version of what we consider our platform, and it'll apply that HTTP2 upgrade, and it'll go out with the app. And that's intentional because, for example, if their app's using WebSockets, HTTP2 is going to break it. So we want it to be deployed and released at the same time, so that their full suite of tests run, and we're confident that those infrastructure changes have had no adverse impact on the application.
That makes sense. Does anybody else have any questions kind of about the context before we start diving into more of the specifics? All right, so you've linked an issue that outlines a number of problems that you've had with the 1.5 to 1.6 upgrade process. And as the UX working group, I looked through them. I didn't see any that were clearly under our area of ownership, but we're more concerned with kind of the overall story of how we can improve as a project the usability in terms of upgrading Istio and operating Istio. So are there any trends you can sort of draw out of that data for us?
I mean, I'm not too sure if this answers the question directly, but I think the biggest, ignoring the specifics of the problems, I think the biggest issue that we face with Istio is by the time that we as a user are encountering upgrade problems, the Istio project is already focused heavily on the next release. So there's a lot of focus on getting a release out the door, release blockers, and if you get in there and test a release early, you're going to get some real focus on your issues. But then once the release is out the door, it can be a lot harder to get traction. And actually, sometimes it's like, well, a lot of your users, as you've seen from the surveys that you've done, are running older versions of Istio in production environments. So it's almost like we need a way in which to help them get up to date, and the project needs to accept that people are going to be coming with upgrade related problems from your perspective late on in the process, but in the real world at scale, actually sort of 3 months behind the release. It's not that long ago. So you could be releasing 1.8 tomorrow, and 1.6 will be, 1.8 goes out in a few weeks, doesn't it? So then 1.6 will be unsupported, but tons of your users are on 1.6, and they're kind of then just left in the lurch. And that's going to be the problem, I think. Like, I almost would like to see, this is me just throwing a solution out there that suits me, but seeing upgrade blockers treated in the same way that release blockers are treated, in the sense that they are critical to your user base and just as important, would be the solution to this. Because what I accept a lot with these problems, and I've said this to John before, there's only so many things that the Istio group can find before a release goes out the door, because there's so many permutations of configuration and so many things that can go wrong. And your customers are going to be doing so many different things with the product that you to a large extent, you are reliant on, particularly those people who've got complex infrastructure, to find problems, feed them back to you, and get them sorted, to enable then all those other users to do the upgrades. Because there's probably a whole bunch of users that are encountering problems, but they're not raising GitHub issues either and just giving up. So yeah, from my perspective, it's like there's probably like the top 10% of your customers that have got complex deployments. If there was something that gave us confidence that those upgrade issues were treated with a similar sort of weighting as a release blocker, I think that would help a lot. Obviously, I'm saying that without any understanding of the priorities in your project behind the scenes. I'm just coming at it purely from a customer's perspective.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Once you've gotten a minor version running, how long do you expect to keep that running in production? How frequently are you looking at upgrading, for instance?
Well, we'll always go through, minor rather than patch. So just to be, you mean like, as in like a 1.5 or 1.6, don't you? Just yeah. So historically, we've always been relatively up to date. So to the point where I consider us cutting edge. Like a bleeding edge, sorry, I should say. Like we've always had the latest release of Istio in production environments within a week or two of it being released. And historically in the past, we've been involved in the pre-release testing of those. I think what's happened realistically over time is a combination of things. Like our confidence has been eroded a little bit to the point where we're now a little bit more scared to run it in a production environment, so close to a release. As an example, we didn't even, so the way that manifests is with 1.6, we decided to wait for more patch releases than we usually would do before we started trying it, because 1.4 to 1.5 was extremely painful for us, took a long time. And there was a combination of things there. We wanted a break, to be honest. We needed to focus on some other stuff in the organization. And two, this time around, we kind of wanted to let it settle a little bit. So that's what we actually waited for, like 9 patch releases of 1.6. Before we started even looking at it. So that's unusual for us. We left it longer than expected, and it was still super unstable. So I think the thing we've learned from this most recent release is there's things about our infrastructure and our architecture that are probably sufficiently different to the majority of users that we just need to get the releases. We need to go closer to the main release again. So as soon as we've got this 1.6 out the door, we're going to get 1.7 into a testing environment again to try and surface some of these problems as quickly as possible. But realistically, 1.8 is going to be out by the time that happens. So we might end up with a similar situation again, which is, people are focusing on stabilizing 1.8 and thinking about 1.9. And then meanwhile, we're only just getting onto 1.7. So we've got some catch up to be doing.
That makes sense. So when you're looking to upgrade to a minor, what tends to be motivating you? Are you looking for features? Are you looking to try to stay in the support window? Are you worried about CVEs?
Yeah, so in order of preference when it comes to a minor release, it's going to be staying in the support window is our biggest concern. Knowing that if something goes wrong, then people are going to be able to help. CVEs is more of a patch concern for me. It's like as long as we're in the support window, then we're going to be getting security patches, and we have no issues doing patch releases. We always release them, so that would be second. Features is a rare one now for us, if I'm being honest. I've said a few times now that I believe Istio has too many features. That might just be a historical bias that I personally have. It had too many features out the door, and it wasn't very stable. A lot of the features weren't stable. Sometimes it does feel to a user like you've got like core features, and like for example, going from 1.4 to 1.5 and changing from telemetry v1 to telemetry v2. As far as I was concerned, there was a whole bunch of regressions in v2 versus v1. So there was aspects of metrics that just didn't work the way that they used to work. So for me, like observability is an absolute core function of Istio. It shouldn't regress. But I still see then new features getting released. So that's what I mean by sometimes like there needs to be a little bit more of a focus on the features that the vast majority of your users are going to use are going to be observability, mutual TLS, these core components, and they need 90% of the focus, in my opinion. And because to most of your customers, they're going to deliver 90% of the value as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you've mentioned that you guys are sort of a power user and a little bit of an edge case in terms of the complexity of the ways that you're using Istio. Have you ever considered trying to contribute some of your acceptance tests to the project in such a way that we could automatically run them before we release?
Yeah, but like I said to you a second ago, it isn't our acceptance tests and our Istio test suite that's really catching the problems. It's variance of workloads from our users. And yeah, so we can go back and we find a particular problem in a pre-production environment. We can retrospectively go back and write a test both in Istio and our test suite in order to tackle that. But the issues that we have with upgrades, they're always something new, if that makes sense. It's never a repeat problem. And usually, like the process that usually happens is I find a problem, I end up talking to John. John helps me fix the problem, and then as far as I'm concerned, that particular manifestation of the problem is fixed then in Istio. The next problem we face will be something new.
Okay. So at least we're not making the same mistakes twice.
No, I'm just trying to think if there is any examples of where I feel like a bug is regressed. Nothing springs to mind. It's like 90% of the problems we face are just the subtle changes that, to be honest, the devs will have done without realizing that it could affect our particular edge case, and that's going to happen. It's fine, and that brings me back to my earlier point of like I totally accept that I'm going to find issues that your test suite won't, and probably the majority of your customers won't. It's just about, well, what's the making the process better for getting those things addressed post release.
Yeah. So I'm curious. We've had some conversations in the test and release group about different release strategies. Right now we run T+1 for support. So T+2 is one strategy that is possible, but of course that adds a lot more support burden to the project. We discussed the possibility of various long-term stable releases and things like that. What are your thoughts? Do you have like a desired support outcome that you would like to see from the project?
I mean, without understanding or knowing the code base at all, but as a software developer, I'm struggling to see why you need these really hard 3-month sort of minor releases. Like, is the code base changing that much between 1.4 and 1.5? Like, how can I describe it? So like, if when I'm writing software, I do mainline trunk development. So my master branch is the branch that is always getting worked on, is the one that gets released, and I release features on that branch. I don't work on another version of the code that's so different from the previous version of the code that it's almost big bang when it goes out the door, because I feel that's what's happening at the moment. The things that are breaking for me, they're not new features, they're existing features as a result of rewriting of code, probably to facilitate something else. So like, in a perfect world, and I'm saying this without at all understanding the Istio release process, working from one code base and releasing features and continually releasing, like, just version 1 is just going out the door, feels better to me. It feels like a lot of the problems are coming because too much changes. Like, release more frequently and release smaller subsets of code.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then in some ways as well, right, if you were releasing features rather than sort of big branches of code, you would be able to support like upgrade processes for a longer time. Like for example, telemetry v2 has been in 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, but it's still telemetry v2. So like, why is that code base effectively unsupported for like T-1 releases? It feels like, yeah, I don't know, just a more continual release process, and then you won't need these windowed support sort of things.
That makes sense. Well, I think I've gotten through all the questions that I have. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add in terms of Q&A with Carl?
Yeah, I have a question, or a few questions. Hey, Carl, this is Martin.
Hi.
So first of all, thanks for taking the time to talk with us. So my general question, I think, is around. So you guys have been using Helm since the beginning, and at some point we started encouraging people to use Istio Kernel or the operator, and Helm sort of faded away into the background, and we're kind of bringing it back now by popular demand. And just as sort of full disclosure here, I'm I work very heavily on Istio cuddle install. So if there's anybody to kick for anything that goes wrong with that installation and upgrade path, I'm the guy. But I was wondering, in terms of choosing, your main way of managing Istio, what's your perspective on using Helm versus other tools? Is it, you guys just have extensive infrastructure that's tied to Helm, or are there any other, factors there that would steer you in choosing one over the other?
A few factors. So we deploy Istio in the same way that we actually deploy all of our applications. Like, it's the same pipelines that run, it's the same pipeline templates, the same supporting scripts, and the same supporting CLI infrastructure, because as far as we're concerned, it's just a chart. And so are all of our applications, they're just a chart. So yes, there's a whole load of supporting CI and CD infrastructure that is based around using charts. However, using Helm has got a couple of other benefits for us as well. We really like the ability to track resources on the Kubernetes cluster specifically to that chart. So, if we want to roll back or roll forward, we can use Helm to roll back or roll forward through those releases, and we know that the resources on the cluster are tracked with that, so we don't have any rubbish left around on the cluster. The other thing that's been really beneficial for us during Istio upgrades in particular is because we use either your Helm or your Istio CTL in order to generate the manifests, we post-process them into our charts. We're then able to do effectively Git differentials of all of the manifest changes. So we don't have confidence in doing Istio CTL install and letting it do some stuff against the cluster. Or same applies to the operator, right? We don't have confidence in running a binary on the cluster and just letting it do what it needs to do. We want to know what it's doing because it's such a critical part of our infrastructure. So being able to do diffs of the actual manifests that get generated as a result of this has stopped so many bugs getting into production environments. Give you an example, like the webhook validation in 1.6. So there's an option in the installer to disable config validation. You set that to true, and you do a generate manifests, you still get the webhook getting generated, which means it's not actually working. And we don't want config validation at runtime because we do it in CI and CD at the moment. And we also wanted to minimize the amount of change in the 1.5 to 1.6 release. So that's a prime example of where we've set an installation option, generated the manifests, and we've only realized when we've done that differential of our release that actually that's not doing what it says it's doing. Does that kind of make sense? We've prevented a lot of bugs with that diff.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I'm not sure if you have seen the manifest generate function that Istio cuddle has. What's that?
I said, doesn't it use Helm behind the scenes?
Oh yeah, it does. Under the hood, it's still the Helm chart. So that's why we're able to bring Helm back, as it's mostly just a desire to limit the number of installation paths that we have to support. More than any fundamental compatibility there. So there is a way to be able to generate the output manifests and diff them if you want through.
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing. So, and we want to continue to do that. Like, we've been generating the manifests and post-processing them into our own Helm charts since alpha. We want to continue to do that moving forward. And for us, it doesn't really matter how we generate those manifests. Up until 1.5, we used Helm. We used your Helm charts. 1.6, we switched to Istio CTL. 1.7, we'll continue to use Istio CTL. To be honest, we'll probably continue to use Istio CTL to generate the manifest now, as long as it's supported, because there's no value for us switching back to Helm, because fundamentally all we care about are the generated manifests. And it's work.
Yeah, that's good to know. Because that's the other thing I was wondering about is we also we used to support Istio cuddle manifest generate as a sort of first class installation path, and just due to mostly a lack of feedback from users, we just stopped advertising it.
Okay.
We're thinking about bringing it back, so it sounds like it's
well, I mean, I will use whatever your supported method for generating the manifest is. So from my perspective, Helm has been taken away, and at the moment, Istio CTL generate manifests or manifest generate is the only way of me generating those manifests, unless I'm wrong.
No, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, that's the only way I can do it. So it's it's a bit worrying. I wasn't aware that it wasn't supported, so that's another concern for me.
Well, it's not that it's not supported. It's just we don't openly advertise it as something that we encourage because we just are seeing just an explosion of different install methods. So we're trying to encourage most users to use just one or two different installation methods rather than 4. But
yeah, I mean, that makes sense for you guys from a product perspective. I'm sure there's lots of users having installation issues, but like my pain definitely doesn't come from the install really because of this process.
Okay, well, so anyway, I think for 1.8 we are planning to bring back Helm and manifest generate as fully documented and sort of top level install paths, and we're going to start supporting that as sort of like a first class method again. So
cool.
Yeah, it's good to understand like why you guys are preferring that.
So Carl, what I'm hearing is that even with first class Helm support, you guys, even if you were to use that, you would use it to generate a manifest, and then you would integrate that into your own Helm chart rather than using the chart directly.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay.
We do a bunch. We don't just generate manifests and then template them into our own charts. We do some post-processing of those things as well. So some stuff that we do is specific to our organization that doesn't make sense to be exposed as an Istio installer option. We do that, in that middle phase, effectively.
I did have a question. So you have the pre-process phase, basically where you pass values, and then post-process. If we were to, and I'm not suggesting we do this, just trying to understand, if we were to provide like just a plain YAML file that's just like a deployment with a couple of things set, which you would need to add all the settings you want for like resources, etc. Would that be a huge pain for you, or does it not matter really because you do the post-processing?
I mean, we want to do the least amount possible in the post-processing, really. So that's kind of it's a legacy artifact from back in the days when you couldn't, for example, like we were using Istio that early that you couldn't configure the resources on Pilot properly and stuff like that. So we had to do stuff, after the fact.
So that's the escape hatch, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Basically, yeah. So we want to do in an ideal world that generate. I wish it would just go Istio values into your generate manifests into our charts with no middleman, because it simplifies my whole process. It's just currently a requirement.
So some of these customizations that you're doing, we now have this backdoor available. I was wondering if you had tried using the overlays. There's a sort of built-in patching mechanism where you can reach into pretty much any part of the output manifest and patch it to your heart's content. Have you tried that out, or is
I've not even heard of it? I would definitely be interested, because our method of patching some of these files at the moment is pretty crude. If that was a supported way of making modifications moving forward, it makes sense to use it.
Yeah, it's definitely. So I think it's more robust than I'm not sure how you guys are patching the output manifest, whether you sort of parse it back into YAML and then patch it that way, or
yeah, it's Ruby, so we pass the YAML in, modify the object, write it back as YAML.
Okay, all right. So yeah, we do something similar. It's just there's just some path. So if you want to patch, let's say, a list element or something like that, we have a pretty rich way of traversing all the paths that you would have to patch. Anyway, I'd be curious to hear what you think about that, and
yeah, if you send me over the information, I'll see if any of our use cases fit it, and I'm happy to provide feedback.
Yep, thanks.
Any other questions, or Carl, maybe anything else you'd like to add?
Not really, no.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to let us know how things are going. I hope that we can take this and fold it into the 1.9 roadmap and start to see some meaningful improvements in this direction. I will be taking this feedback and representing it back up to the Technical Oversight Committee in the next couple of weeks. So your voice is being heard. Appreciate you taking the time. We're going to continue on with release matters. And of course, you're welcome to stick around. It will be substantially less interesting than the first half of the meeting.
No, I'll leave you all to it. Thanks for letting me chew your ears off, everyone. I'll speak to you later.
Yeah, see you around. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share out a window, including our UX items that were targeted to the 1.8 release. We have one P0 left. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thanks, Martin. Okay, so there's only one P0 left that is targeted to this milestone. And I'm not sure. I know that Ed had the ball on this, and he's, of course, out on jury duty right now. So I was wondering if anybody else had context here. There were several related issues. I'm not sure if there's any related pull requests. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any PRs related to this particular issue. So I'm inclined, in Ed's absence, to probably retarget this to 1.9. We did have it set as a P0 for this release. But without him around, it's kind of difficult to say what progress has or hasn't been made in this direction. Anyone have any objections to moving this to the 1.9 release? For the record, what this is we lost some of our off checks back in, I think, Istio 1.5 or 1.6 when peer authentication was introduced. Our off checks that we had added in Istio CTL no longer worked. So we had taken out a task in 1.6, no, I'm sorry, in 1.7 to correct this with the security working group. It got kicked to 1.8. And I would be kicking it again, which is not ideal. But without knowing the status, I don't see like we have a lot of other options. Any objections to moving this to 1.9? All right, I'm going to go ahead and do that. That's been moved, so we can come back here. That's our only P0. We have a number of P1s and P2s that are still marked as incomplete for this release. And I own some of them. Looks like Jason owns some. We've got, is that Steve? Does anyone have anything that we need to deal with before the release? We saw the branch cut yesterday, I believe. So is there anything that UX group needs to pay attention to this morning to try and tie up that release and get all of our features complete? Anybody have any features they wanted to talk about that are shipping in 1.8? All right.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I have worked on one of the PR, which basically detects different version of control plan versions, and it has been around for more than 4 months, and I finally got approval yesterday from Martin and Ed, and I think it's merged today morning. But I just wanted to make sure that that feature works properly with the different control plan revisions installed. So I just wanted to make sure that the testing on that part has been done properly. I'll share that link in the comments so that I got a lot of feedback from John. I implemented that. Then it got automatically closed for some time, but then got a lot of other feedbacks from Ed, and I've covered that. Let me just look into that.
Well, if you've gotten reviews from Martin and John, that's already a pretty high quality bar. They tend to be excellent reviewers.
Yep.
Well, I didn't do a very thorough review on this one, so you have to. I hope that John did. But yeah, I also I'm a bit concerned about the amount of time that this PR spent in review, and you know, like the risk is that the set of assumptions that it was originally created with may not be all valid at the time that it merged. So yeah, I agree. I think this one needs to be tested pretty well.
Is the PR showing up on the list here? I'm not seeing something about version.
Yeah, let me just find it out. Actually, it was 4 months ago, so I'm also not able to see my pull request closed. Uh, and give me a second now. Yeah, we can continue discussion on other things, and I'll share the link.
Well, my first question, if we're concerned about testing, is did the feature add an integration test?
No.
Okay. So that is probably the first step that we want to go through. Let's see here. Oh, merge, display warning if the installed Istio version is different.
Right, right. That's the PR.
All right, let's have a look at this.
So I've tested this with 1.5.6, 1.6.8, and 1.7.3, I think. It works fine with the different warnings that is shown in the PR comments. But I just wanted to make sure that this works fine with other versions. Maybe if somebody wants to have some different views of upgrading, or maybe if the messages are look perfect or not, if it needs other improvements.
Okay. So my first question, it looks like we're now warning on any install command before proceeding. Is that right?
So the first command, this is by default, means it's already been around in the previous versions. The only thing that we added in this uh, proceed yes and no is that we have added the version that we are installing currently.
Okay.
Previously, we just used to show this will install this your profile into the cluster, but now we have also added the version number so that user will know that which version they are currently installing if there is no older control plan versions installed in this cluster.
Okay. And
And if
in
they
this
already
case,
have one,
oh, go ahead, Chandra.
yeah. And if they have other control plan installed, like 1.6.8 and 1.7.2, so the message will be different. In that case, they will either use a different revision so that the multiple control plan revisions will be installed, or if they want to get rid of everything, they will just use force.
Okay. Yep, that
Yeah.
makes sense. With this one, this is warning that there's already two control planes installed.
Right.
And because there's no revision flag being specified, presumably one of those is being upgraded in place. Is that right?
Right. Right. So the next command that they can do is pass revision flag, where they will specify which revision they are installing. So it will be so the latest version was 1.7.2, and when the revision flag was used, like 1.8.0, it will show a different message saying that you should also run istio analyze in order to check if there is any deprecation warnings in your previous version of control plan revisions.
Out of curiosity, why are we warning about that here and not here?
Yep. I think we can also add the same warning in the above message where the revision flag is not passed.
Okay, that
This is
makes
as
sense.
per the
Well,
feedback
I
we
like the
received.
idea of this feature. I think it's helpful to give users the context, and I think it's something that we can build on as we go forward, which is great.
Okay.
Do you know what the message looks like if you're running an install on a cluster that has the same version already installed?
So it will be the first message. This will install Istio 1.8.0 profile if they are running the same version.
Okay.
And now that these messages are will be displayed in every install, they can get rid of if we pass I think -y force. I don't remember that command, but yeah, they can get rid of those messages I think by passing -y.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like the feature. I don't know that we necessarily want to do a live code review. In terms of testing, sounds like what we need is an integration test that installs one or more older versions of Istio and then runs this command and checks output. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. I will work with Nathan Mittler, who is the author of our integration test framework, to understand what we've got in terms of upgrade test infrastructure and what we can do there. And I will open up an issue for authoring tests for this. I feel like we probably ought to target that for the 1.8 release. I know that we're technically code complete, but we should be able to merge tests after the feature complete deadline. Does it make sense to call this a P1 targeted to the 1.8 release?
Actually, I'm not sure that what should be the priority for this, but if we get more information on the integration test for this, yeah, we can definitely do it a P1.
Okay. Then I will get that issue opened, referring to this pull request.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks for contributing this, Sean. I'm sure this will be really helpful.
Welcome.
Oh, I also wanted to encourage you. I noticed on the list of maintainers for the UX working group is getting a little stale. We have a few maintainers who have moved on that we probably need to clean out of the list. And we have a few like yourself, Shamshir, who are contributing frequently but have not yet made the maintainer list. So I think, based on what I've seen, let's see, the requirements for maintainer are listed here on the community page. If you feel like you meet the requirements and are willing to fulfill the obligations of a maintainer, which would just be to be performing code reviews and bug triage, that sort of thing, we would be happy to have you join the working group in that way.
Awesome. That sounds good. Actually, that's my next question was, because I see that there are very few people in the UX working group, and sometimes the PR takes longer to get reviewed or maybe approved. I lost track of what I've been doing in the last PR, or maybe, so for example, this PR got took almost 4 months to got merged. There are a lot of feedbacks that I got on this PR, which is really good because then I improved a different point of views in upgrading the control plan versions. But if there are more people in the UX working groups, it will be good to get these important features merged quickly. So yeah, I'll go through the requirements for working group leads, and whatever is required, I'll try to do that, and I'll be happy to join UX working
Yeah,
group.
that would be great. The good news is that if you join as a maintainer, that's one more person to review pull requests. The bad news is it's not one more person to review your pull requests, as you can't review your own, but we would be happy to have you.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any other agenda items? We have about 10 minutes left on the clock. All right. I think we can give everyone 10 minutes back. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. We'll be back to our normal schedule next week, which is Tuesdays at 11. And Shamshir, I know that you prefer the 9 a.m. time slot. I think we're going to move to a schedule that has the fourth Thursday of every month. Or sorry, not Thursday, the fourth Wednesday of every month at 9 a.m. be a UX meeting. That week we'll cancel the Tuesday meeting and hold it on Wednesdays. We would skip October because that would be next week. I kind of had a scheduling snafu and accidentally scheduled something over the extensions meeting. Need to not do that again. But so our next Wednesday meeting should be the fourth Wednesday in November, and I'll make sure our calendar reflects that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you around.
Thanks, Mitch. Bye.
Bye.